that you actually need another meal. Your body's telling you, hey, we're running low on fuel, let's get some more nutrition. So by stretching out these things here, a lot of really interesting things start happening with our physiology. We start improving that leptin resistance, we start improving insulin resistance, and we start giving ourselves a nice growth hormone boost in between every single meal. Now the next hormone that's very critical to optimize is adrenaline. And adrenaline actually works in our favor when we're healthy for fat loss, physique composition goals, and for being stronger. The problem is when we're releasing adrenaline too much and it stays up for too long. And that's pretty much what's going on with most of us all day long. Because when you have that morning cup of coffee, you're increasing stress hormones called norepinephrine and epinephrine. Okay, these are adrenaline hormones. And your brain interprets that as you're in a stress-induced state. So you could be relaxing, watching the news, reading a newspaper, but you just drank a cup of coffee or a few cups of coffee. All your brain can do is get the signals from whatever hormones is telling the brain. The brain can't see what's going on. The brain can't see that you're not in a stress state. So the brain interprets that as you're in a stress state. And when we start having adrenaline go up all day long and too often, we develop adrenaline resistance. We have receptors in our stomach and stubborn body fat areas. So wherever you have stubborn body fat, we have adrenaline receptors there. Now when everything is working right, let's say right before a workout or right before some stressful event, our body will pull nutrition from stubborn body fat. So it'll start pulling nutrition from the stomach, the hips, wherever you have stubborn body fat. But when adrenaline is produced massively all day long, every day, you start getting resistance where now adrenaline does not communicate with the brain effectively anymore. And instead of pulling nutrition out of stubborn body fat areas, every time we eat, we start storing more there instead. So you're basically making yourself a fat-building machine with all these different resistances. So when you have leptin resistance, insulin resistance, and adrenaline resistance, you have a multi-pronged problem, and it's all leading to one place. More fat, less muscle tissue, more health consequences, and more inflammation building up rapidly. When we optimize these three, we don't just get the health benefits of what each hormone is made to do, it really spills over into other things. Because when our insulin levels are optimal, we can start losing more body fat, getting more physique composition benefits. The less fat cells we have, the less estrogen receptors we're going to have as well. So we're going to start losing more of that body fat in all the right places. Also, when you have high insulin levels, cortisol has to kick in to reduce that inflammation that comes from excess insulin being high all the time. So when you have really high insulin levels, it's also causing more adrenaline resistance. So the way to address these things is relatively simple. We can address the three big players by eating clean food and taking longer stretches in between each meal. And one more thing that most of us are completely deprived in, and that's quality sleep. You know, how many of you get 8 hours of quality sleep every single night? Okay, we got one person, and me, and probably Roger too, camera guy here. We all get good quality sleep because it's that important. I get 8 or 9 hours of sleep every night. When I'm maybe the night before a course like this, or if I'm on the road, it'll be a little bit skewed. But 8 or 9 hours, I find, just really helps me restore properly and have better workouts, better mood, and just better overall well-being. Sleep is the most important thing you can do for optimizing your hormones. It's the most important. We want to try to manage stress. We want to eradicate stress. So we have to look at what are the big stresses in our life, and ideally, how do we eradicate it? So that's the long-term plan, eradicate stress. In the short term, we use stress management techniques like meditation, deep sleep, resting up on the weekend, weekly massages, supplements like phosphatidylserine, theanine, melatonin to give us deep quality sleep. That's what we do in the short run. In the long run, we have to eradicate stress. Because I'll tell you what, I ate pretty well, and I took different supplements and so forth when I was working in corporate America, but I hated my job. And no matter what you do outside of your job, if you hate your job where you spend the majority of your time, you're just not going to feel optimal. It wasn't until I really got into something that I wanted to do, which is what I'm doing now, that I really started coming together and feeling great. So it's not as simple as let's just eat this way and take a few supplements. We have to look at overall lifestyle management. And there was a really interesting study that was done with baboons out in the wild. And these anthropologists, they studied baboons in the wild and how they interact with each other, and then they wanted to check out their endocrinology. So what they did is they shot them with these darts, non-lethal. They just wanted to make them pass out so they could check their blood work. And they did it from afar, because you don't want to chase them down when they have a lot of adrenaline and cortisol and all that stuff pumping through. It'll give you a false reading. And here's what they found looking at the blood work. They found that the alpha males, the ones that are high on the totem pole, the ones that are at the top of the hierarchy, they had perfect levels of health. They had high testosterone, they had low cholesterol, they had low blood pressure, low stress hormones. The ones that are at the bottom of the totem pole, they had the opposite. They had low androgens, low testosterone, high cortisol, high blood pressure, high cholesterol.